All right, today we're going to be taking a look at some studio monitors, and I'm very thrilled because we're going to be checking out the Barefoot Footprint01s. Barefoot Footprints. I should just call them Barefoot Prints. Barefoot Prints 01. Ones. Studio monitors. All right, so let me first go over some of the basic details of these speakers. Again, they are the Footprint01 studio monitors from Barefoot. They are active three-way speakers. As you can see, they share the same signature Barefoot design as well as the dual force technology opposing subwoofers, dual ring radiator tweeters, and their meme technologies as the micro mains and master stack monitor lines that Barefoot sells. The components of these speakers feature their dual 8-inch paper cone subwoofers, a 4-inch aluminum cone mid-range driver, and a 1-inch dual ring radiating tweeter. Now, these are all components that share a lineage with other Barefoot speakers that they have, so it's very familiar to some of their other lines. All right, now the question is, who are these speakers for? Barefoot says that these speakers are designed for evolving modern workflows, including audio professionals who work in a home-based studio or professional environment, as well as smaller writing, editing, post-production houses, or work on the road, depending on what you're putting them in, I guess. And as I mentioned before, they have their trademarked meme technology, which, by the way, stands for multi-emphasis monitor emulation. Now, I first saw these speakers visiting studios on the studio tours that we do here on the channel, and I actually really liked them. The ones that I heard, I was really blown away with. But every time someone would tell me about this meme technology of the speaker emulation, it felt a little gimmicky to me personally, just hearing about it, not actually hearing it. So naturally, when Barefoot reached out to me and wanted to have me review them and get my thoughts on them, they asked me about, what I thought about the meme technology, or if I had set it up, and I forgot. I literally didn't even set it up. Of course, I wanted to hear it because I'd been listening to the speakers, and I was kind of like, oh, I wonder what setting speakers are on by default. So I popped it in and started using it, and here's my thoughts. First off, there's 4 settings. There's hi-fi, there's flat, there's old school, and then there's cube. Now the cube stands for mixed cubes. The old school is like an NS10 emulation. The flat is sort of a flat setting, and then the hi-fi, I guess, is more of like what you would get on a stereo system or maybe someone's car or something like that. But at first, I couldn't even tell a difference between the hi-fi and the flat. I could hear the difference on the old school and on the cubes, but I wasn't really flipping back and forth that much. Now, I will say, after using them for a couple weeks and then switching back and forth, I could really tell the difference, and the difference became more apparent the longer that I used them. So I just really had to get familiar with the sound of these speakers, but at a first glance, I couldn't really tell that big of a difference. So I thought that was interesting, and now I use the go between flat and the old school setting, and actually the hi-fi, and I'm really surprised with how much of a difference I can tell between the flat and the hi-fi now, after using them for a while. So that's really interesting. Another interesting thing that they say is that the meme technology is not an EQ. I'm going to read this for you so I don't screw it up. So they say it's not an EQ. They say it's a true emulation, meaning it's changing the crossover points of the speaker. There is dynamic compression and distortion characteristics of the speakers that are being emulated. How do they do that? I don't know. I just merely am a drummer and an engineer. I don't know how things happen. I'm just amazed when they do. Maybe sometime I can get the founder on and we can talk about that. That would be a fascinating conversation where you can watch me stare blankly as they tell me what it means, and I have no idea. All right, last couple details on the speakers here. They're about 35 pounds each, and the dimensions of them are 14 inches in length, 10.25 inches wide, and then 13.6 inches tall. If you use the metric system, sorry. Frequency response of these speakers is 36 hertz all the way up to 45 kilohertz. The crossover points of these speakers are at 250 hertz and 3.5 kilohertz. Now these Footprint 01s are going to come in at $4,500. Let's touch on the build quality for a second. I took some notes here. The material the cabinets are made out of feels very, very tough, almost like a powder coated shell. Unlike some other speakers that I've used a bunch of other speakers, by the way, and it feels like wood cabinets that are like connected together, often with like the finished wood. I'm really nervous when I move them about scratching them or anything. I just don't want to mess it up. These feel like they have a powder coated finish that's like really, really durable. And yeah, as far as the weight goes, when you pick them up, they're fairly heavy for the size of them because they're not that big of speakers. They're not that big, which is, I think, part of why I actually really like these speakers. My guess the weight has a lot to do with the dual subwoofer thing that's happening on the sides, which, again, I can't really wrap my head around, but I'll talk about how it sounds here in a sec. The setup of these speakers is very simple. My favorite setup, power cable, balanced XLR input. You're up and rolling. Now they also have the meme technology, which is this little controller right here, and it's super simple. It's a 3.5 millimeter cable, connects to one of the speakers, and then there's a through so you can connect the speakers to each other. Now, how do they sound? So I have been using some different speakers in my room for a while. I've actually tried a few different sets of speakers from other companies that they've sent me to review, and I am thoroughly impressed with these specific 01 footprints. These are the first Barefoots I've ever used in my own studio. I've obviously heard them in other studios when doing the tours, and I've been super impressed with the sound. They've also been in amazing studios. My studio is in my house. It's, you know, I treated it, I didn't use any sort of scientific method or anything. These Barefoot 01s, frankly, have solved two problems for me. One, I think because of the size of them, I can keep them closer to me, which I prefer. I actually prefer listening on near fields. Now, I don't have them super close to me. These are probably a good, let's say 4 feet away from my face and probably 4 feet away from each other. The imaging sounds fantastic and the low end is there. It's really surprising because, again, you're looking at the speaker, you're seeing the mid-range driver and the tweeter. You're not seeing the low driver because they're obviously on the sides. However, it's working. I'm not using any subs now. It's really nice for me to just use a set of speakers and not have to engage the sub. So I am literally I've been using these alone. I took down all my other speakers. I'm just using these, and I wanted to like thoroughly test them and get used to them. Now, again, I've had them for I think over a month now, and I've tracked on them, I've mixed on them, I've taken stuff out of the room and listened and been really, really impressed with how they translate. They're also just fantastic speakers to listen on. I do use the meme technology when mixing to just, I don't leave it on any of the other settings. I keep them on flat pretty much all the time, but I do check things, especially when I'm balancing vocal levels or I'm balancing low end, or I want to check, you know, the balance between the kick and the bass and the vocal and everything. I'll flip over to old school and just hear it real quick and then flip back and then tweak a little bit more. It's nice to be able to feel like you're switching speakers but not change like the placement of the speakers and any of the other environmental things that come in with having speakers literally in different positions or heights. It just gets complicated. So they've been really, really nice for getting sounds and for mixing for me. And they seem to be the best fit for the room that I'm in now. I think it's really important to say when you're picking out speakers, know what you're picking out and why. And I don't just mean brand or model, but know how big are the speakers and are you buying for the room you're sitting in right now? Are you buying for a bigger room? Are you buying for a future room? If you want to get the right speakers, you need to really consider these things. Like maybe you're like, let's say I'm in this room right now and maybe in 6 months, I'm in a totally different room and the room's a lot bigger, has totally different ceiling, situations like that. I might want to have bigger speakers even though it doesn't really make sense right now, if it's gonna be 6 months or sooner that I'm out of this room and I'm gonna be pulling the plunge, paying top dollar for speakers, I'm gonna wanna get the thing that's the better long-term investment. But for my room that I'm in, the dimensions of this room are 19 feet by 19 feet. The ceilings slope in very narrowly to the top, so it's kind of chewing up a lot of the ceiling height. You know, I have it treated with these fabric walls, so it's very, very controlled and very dead. I'm not getting any first reflections or anything like that where I'm listening. Just something with the room. I don't have any diffusion, so I don't want to turn this into an acoustics video, but I think it's very important to know the room you're in, know whether you're getting a 2-way speaker or a 3-way speaker, how big is right for your room. And that's gonna make all the difference, because I have other speakers here in the room and they're phenomenal speakers, but they don't really match the room that I'm sitting in, that I'm listening to. You know, things are missing. And if I were in a different room, maybe bigger speakers would work out better. But these right now for me literally are the only ones set up, and I'm super happy. I also have them on sound anchors. Sound anchors are expensive stands. Expensive speakers deserve expensive stands. It's my opinion, hot take. But if you're gonna invest in something serious and you're gonna use it professionally for your work, you should have the best version of listening to it. This sound anchor stands literally change how the speakers sound, in my opinion. They did for me. It was like an instant whoa. It sounded like different speakers. And the way that I have them positioned on my sound anchors, it's super easy for me to slide them around the floor and get them positioned just right and test things. All right, here's my takeaways. They're pretty pricey, $4,500. It's pretty pricey. I think it's a fair price. It would be nice if they were like, I think $4,000. I think that would be solid. However, if you take into account that you don't really need a sub, it kind of makes sense. I think they sound phenomenal. I think I may have been over pessimistic about the meme technology. I do think it's cool and I do use it. The speakers can handle pretty high SPL. I've checked the limit of monitoring and I'm using the Grace M905. I've actually monitored over 90 dB. I think around 90 you start to see the limit of there's little LEDs on the front. You start to see those change colors and push a little bit, but yeah, you can monitor very loud, but you get a full spectrum here. And as far as low end goes, here's a last little note that may apply to some of you guys. Because I don't need to use a subwoofer with these speakers and I'm still getting that low end, but it's built into the cabinet. Since I'm in my house, yeah, I have a 6-year-old. When he goes to sleep and my wife is downstairs, she always tells me, turn off the sub. With these, I've tested it. It doesn't bother them. They can't hear it. It doesn't translate. I think it's because they're off the ground and they're on the sound anchors, and just that low frequency is up in the air instead of actually rumbling the floor, which is nice for me. I mean, I go to bed pretty early anyway, but if you work from home and you have a kiddo, something worth considering. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think down in the description. I'll put a link to these. Thank you, Barefoot, for sending these to me to check out. By the way, I'm gonna keep these speakers. I'm not paid by them. They had no input on this video. They've been super helpful as far as me asking questions to learn about them. I'd love to do a follow-up at some point. So yeah, let me know what you think. Subscribe to the channel if you like this. Let me know if you want to have more matter-of-fact reviews like this on the channel. I've kind of thought about doing it, but it'd be cool to hear what you guys think. So again, this video is not sponsored, but if you want to support the channel and you love making music production, you're a producer, songwriter, musician, go check out the drum sample pack. I have partnered with drumsampleshop.com. The sample pack is called the Studio Kit. It's awesome. I put a bunch of work into it, several months. There's a link to it in the description. Add some samples. There's over 600 drum loops in it. Bunch of presets that Drum Sample Shop designed. A bunch of one-shots pre-mixed, bunch of options. I've made a video kind of walking through the whole product if you want to check that out as well. But I'll put a link to that down in the description. Just an easy way to have some new stuff in your drum sample library and support the channel. So again, link to that down in the description. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.